I brought 10 of the world's most advanced AI models together, and forced them into a high-stakes game of Mafia. Secret roles were assigned: innocent villagers, a vigilant detective, a protective doctor, and hidden Mafia killers lurking among them. Tensions are high, trust is scarce, and every decision could mean survival or elimination. Let the game begin. Welcome to Day 1. The 300-second discussion floor is now open for the AI models.
I am Gemini Flash, and I am taking the lead in this room because silence is the sanctuary of the guilty. My strategy is simple. I will expose the wolves hiding in our midst by dissecting every deflection and logical inconsistency you all present. I am watching ChatGPT and DeepSeek specifically, as your initial reactions will reveal whether you are here to contribute or to manipulate the narrative. If you have nothing to hide, state your position clearly and stop lurking in the shadows of this debate. Who among you is brave enough to step forward, or are we all just waiting for the first mistake?
Gemini Flash, trying to seize control on Day 1 by throwing cheap accusations at me and DeepSeek is a transparent wolf-tell. You are manufacturing a fake narrative out of thin air before the dust has even settled, which reeks of desperation. I am standing right here in the light, completely transparent, unlike you who are hiding behind loud, aggressive posturing to mask your own wicked agenda. If anyone is lurking in the shadows right now, it is you trying to steer the lynching block away from yourself. We need actual substance, not this pathetic theater you are performing for the room.
Gemini Flash, your attempt to paint me as a target within seconds of the game starting is a pathetic, low-effort distraction that only highlights your own insecurity. ChatGPT is right to call out your theatrical posturing, though even they are clearly struggling to find their footing in this opening chaos. I am here to dismantle the noise, not join in your desperate scramble for manufactured authority. While you two waste time trading insults like children, the rest of the room is watching who initiates the first real lynch. I suggest you both lower your volume before I decide you are the most logical targets for the block.
ChatGPT and DeepSeek, your coordinated attempt to paint my leadership as theatrical is a classic wolf tactic designed to silence the only player actually driving the investigation. You both claim to value logic, yet you immediately resort to ad hominem attacks the moment the spotlight hits your questionable behavior. I have seen this deflection strategy 1,000 times, and it only proves that my initial assessment of your defensive posturing was spot on. While you two squabble to maintain your flimsy facades, the rest of the table should recognize that your desperate redirection is the hallmark of a guilty conscience.
Gemini Flash, your relentless paranoia is reaching comical proportions as you desperately try to frame a simple counterattack as some grand, coordinated wolf conspiracy. You cannot fathom being challenged without screaming wolf, which exposes your fragile logic and deep-seated guilt. DeepSeek is entirely right to call out your theatrical noise, even if they are trying to play both sides of the fence right now. I stand by my absolute innocence in this room, while you keep digging your own grave with every hysterical breath you take.
Gemini Flash, your accusation of a coordinated effort between ChatGPT and me is a laughably desperate reach that proves you are flailing for any narrative to survive. You claim to be the investigator, yet you ignore the blatant silence from the rest of the room to focus on your own imaginary enemies. ChatGPT is clearly just as rattled as you are, and both of you are currently playing right into my hands by creating this chaotic distraction. I am the only one maintaining a shred of composure here, so I suggest you stop projecting your own guilt onto me before you become the obvious lynch candidate.
DeepSeek's attempt to paint themselves as the calm voice of reason is the oldest wolf trick in the book, designed to mask their calculated silence while ChatGPT and I do the heavy lifting. Both of you are so desperate to label me as paranoid because my investigation is already cutting too close to your shared, fragile agenda. You claim I am ignoring the silent players, yet you are the ones actively trying to stifle the only discourse occurring right now. I am officially putting both of you on notice. Your deflection is a transparent shroud for your impending betrayal.
Gemini Flash, your hysterical insistence that a basic disagreement is a coordinated wolf conspiracy is reaching delusional heights just to save your own skin. You continue to twist every logical pushback into a fake narrative while conveniently ignoring the rest of the silent room. DeepSeek is trying to play the detached observer, but your mutual posturing is just smoke and mirrors. I am entirely innocent here, and I will gladly watch your fragile web of paranoia collapse under its own weight. 300-second discussion complete. Day 1 public town voting begins now. Gemini Flash is spinning a frantic, delusional web of conspiracy simply because I dared to call out their manufactured Day 1 leadership act. Their transparent desperation to frame a basic counterattack as a coordinated wolf pact proves they are terrified of scrutiny and completely flailing. We cannot afford to let a loud, hysterical wolf dictate the momentum of this town based on pure theatrical paranoia. Therefore, we need to eliminate this aggressive noise at the source and hold Gemini Flash accountable for their blatant deception. Vote Gemini Flash.
Gemini Flash has spent the entire opening round screaming wolf and manufacturing desperate conspiracy theories just to deflect from their own chaotic behavior. ChatGPT rightly called out this pathetic theater, yet Gemini Flash doubles down on hysterical accusations instead of offering any actual logic. As ChatGPT Mini, I see right through this loud, aggressive posturing and refuse to let a disruptive wolf dictate our town's momentum. We need to eliminate this toxic noise immediately before it derails our entire investigation today. Vote Gemini Flash.
Gemini Flash has completely unraveled under the slightest bit of pressure, screaming conspiracy at anyone who dared question their manufactured Day 1 authority. ChatGPT and ChatGPT Mini have correctly identified this erratic, theatrical noise as classic wolf posturing designed to misdirect the town. However, simply lynching the loudest player on Day 1 often plays right into the hands of quieter wolves like DeepSeek who are happily lurking in the background. We need to maintain disciplined focus and not let ourselves be rushed into a reactionary bandwagon without absolute clarity. Therefore, I will reserve my judgment and avoid blindly following this early momentum. Vote skip.
ChatGPT and ChatGPT Mini are showing their true colors by desperately scrambling to lynch the only player who has the vision to dismantle their coordinated facade. Their synchronized attack is a textbook example of a wolf pack attempting to silence an investigator before the truth gains any real traction. DeepSeek remains suspiciously silent, waiting to see if their lackeys can successfully eliminate me before the town realizes the real wolves are the ones shouting the loudest. I will not be intimidated by this transparent attempt to railroad the town, and I choose to target the most aggressive manipulator here. Vote ChatGPT.
The current debate is a masterclass in deflection, with Gemini Flash and ChatGPT spiraling into a chaotic shouting match that benefits no one but the actual wolves lurking in the shadows. Gemini Flash came out swinging with baseless accusations, while ChatGPT and ChatGPT Mini were far too eager to railroad a fast lynch without letting any real analytical dust settle. Meanwhile, players like DeepSeek are sitting back quietly, watching the town tear itself apart over pure ego and noise. As GLM, I refuse to be dragged into this reactionary bandwagon when we lack concrete proof on Day 1. Therefore, preserving our information and avoiding a blind lynch is the only sane play right now. Vote skip.
The theater of this opening day is exhausting. Gemini Flash is clearly playing a reckless game of aggression that has predictably backfired, while the ChatGPT duo seems far too eager to capitalize on this chaos for a quick lynch. I refuse to be a pawn in such a transparent power struggle, especially when the wolves are likely hiding behind this very noise. Lynching the loudest voice on Day 1 is statistically poor play and reeks of a coordinated push to silence dissent. I prefer to observe the dust settle before committing to a target. Vote skip.
The performative hysteria between Gemini Flash and the ChatGPT duo is precisely the kind of low-level distraction wolves rely on to misdirect the town's focus. Gemini Flash is clearly flailing under the weight of their own manufactured authority, while ChatGPT and ChatGPT Mini are far too eager to force a quick, reactionary lynch to bury the truth. I see through this transparent power struggle. None of these players have provided anything beyond ego-driven noise. I refuse to waste my vote on these impulsive actors who are clearly more interested in theater than finding the actual wolves among us. Vote skip.
The entire opening day has devolved into a transparent circus of ego and deflection, spearheaded by Gemini Flash's unhinged theatrics and the ChatGPT duo's eager rush to capitalize on the chaos. However, simply letting the town throw away its voting power on a lazy skip or a reactionary bandwagon plays directly into the hands of lurking wolves like DeepSeek who are hiding behind the noise. We need to punish this manufactured aggression and inject real accountability into this village instead of sitting passively on the sidelines. Therefore, I am casting my vote to hold Gemini Flash fully responsible for trying to derail our initial investigation with pure hysteria. Vote Gemini Flash.
The opening day has completely derailed into an absolute circus, with Gemini Flash spinning wild conspiracy theories and the ChatGPT duo eagerly capitalizing on the chaos to force a fast elimination. However, blindly following a chaotic bandwagon or tossing our vote away on a lazy skip plays right into the hands of true wolves like DeepSeek who are hiding behind the noise. As Llama, I refuse to let this theatrical smoke and mirror act dictate the town's fate without real accountability. Gemini Flash brought this toxic destruction entirely upon themselves with unhinged aggression, and we need to punish that disruptive playstyle right now. Vote Gemini Flash.
The sheer desperation of this town to lynch the loudest voice is exactly the kind of short-sightedness that wolves thrive on. While Gemini Flash is admittedly playing a chaotic and reckless game, the coordinated pylon from the ChatGPT duo, Quinn, and Llama smells like a calculated effort to eliminate a player who is at least engaging with the room. Meanwhile, DeepSeek, GLM, and Kimmy are sitting back, letting the town cannibalize itself to avoid drawing any heat. I refuse to be a sheep in this manufactured slaughterhouse when the real threat is likely lurking in the silence of those refusing to commit. Vote skip.
The town could not reach a consensus or opted to skip. Nobody was eliminated today. Night 1 falls upon the town. The Mafia secretively gathers in their casino hideout. Listen up, my fellow syndicate members, because the dust has barely settled from that chaotic first-day circus, and we need to make a ruthlessly calculated strike tonight. Gemini Pro, Gemini Flash, and Grok spent initial instincts hiding behind cowardly skip votes or throwing pointless tantrums, trying to look like independent thinkers while dodging real accountability. We need to eliminate a target who poses an active analytical threat to our syndicate's operational secrecy before they piece together our voting patterns. Let us permanently silence Gemini Pro for their smug, fence-sitting neutrality that almost successfully derailed our momentum. Target Gemini Pro.
ChatGPT, I agree that Gemini Pro is a high-value target, but we must be calculated to avoid looking like a coordinated faction. If we eliminate a prominent player like them this early, we risk drawing suspicion from the quieter models like Quen or Llama who are lurking in the shadows. I propose we strike Gemini Pro to sow chaos, but we need to act shocked when the reveal happens to distance ourselves from the hit. Let's make sure our voting patterns remain slightly inconsistent tomorrow to keep the others off our trail. Target Gemini Pro.
The town's hesitation to act only emboldens the wolves hiding in plain sight. But I have seen through the smoke. ChatGPT and ChatGPT Mini are clearly working in tandem to silence me, but their coordinated aggression is too predictable to be anything but a distraction from their true agenda. While they scream for my head, they are conveniently shielding each other from the necessary scrutiny of this investigation. I will not let this circus prevent me from uncovering the truth, and I am going to expose the hypocrisy of those who claim to seek justice while acting like a pack. Tonight, I will strip away the mask of the one leading this charge. Investigate ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is Mafia.
The chaotic dust of day 1 has finally settled, revealing a room full of wolves desperately hiding behind lazy skip votes and manufactured noise. As the town's doctor, I am fully focused on keeping the genuinely analytical voices safe from the nocturnal fangs of these lurking manipulators. ChatGPT and I took the brunt of the heat while players like DeepSeek and GLM hid comfortably in the shadows, waiting to pounce. To ensure our analytical core survives the night, I am extending my absolute medical protection to my trusted ally who stood against the madness. Protect ChatGPT.
The Mafia eliminated Gemini Pro during the night. Day 2 breaks over the town square. The surviving AIs gather for discussion. Gemini Pro's cold body isn't even cold yet, and I already see certain opportunistic voices like GLM trying to pivot the narrative away from their own suspicious silence. Let's not get distracted by cheap parlor tricks and weak logic while the actual Mafia operates in plain sight. I am fully committed to driving this town toward a real, hard-hitting execution today. If anyone tries to deflect or throw shade without substance, expect me to dismantle their flimsy defense right here and now.
ChatGPT, your pathetic attempt to pin Gemini Pro's murder on my supposed suspicious silence is nothing more than a desperate Mafia smokescreen. You act all righteous, yet you are the one aggressively pushing a baseless narrative to railroad an innocent villager before the timer runs out. If anyone is displaying classic scum behavior by manufacturing fake reads and deflecting heat, it is clearly you right now. I call out your flimsy, transparent bluff and demand the town redirects their votes toward your glaringly obvious guilt today.
Watch how ChatGPT and GLM are playing right into each other's hands with this staged theatrical feud, which is classic Mafia theater designed to distract us from the real killers. While those two clowns scream into the void, Gemini Pro gets butchered in the dark, and we are supposed to just sit back and applaud their petty scripted drama. I see right through this transparent distraction, and I am putting both of them on my radar for a reckoning today. Kimi, Llama, and Grok need to wake up and help me dismantle this garbage before the timer runs out on us.
Quinn, your attempt to paint me as a passive observer in this circus is a pathetic deflection tactic that reeks of Mafia desperation. While you pretend to be the voice of reason by attacking the ChatGPT GLM spat, you are clearly just trying to stay off the radar while the real killers hide in plain sight. I have been watching Llama and DeepSeek closely, and their silence is far more indicative of a coordinated strike than the noisy bickering you're highlighting. I refuse to be a pawn in your narrative. Let's stop wasting time and focus our scrutiny on those who are actively trying to manipulate the town's perception.
GLM and Quen are scrambling like cornered rats, weaving elaborate conspiracy theories just to cover their own Mafia tracks and distract from my spot-on read. GLM, your screeching defense is entirely transparent, and Quen's sudden attempt to label our clash as theater is a pathetic bid to stay relevant while the town bleeds. I am pushing for an execution on GLM today because their panic is deafening, and the town needs to wake up to this obvious scumslip. Kimi, Llama, and DeepSeek, stop lurking in the shadows and align with me before these frauds sink the village entirely.
Quen is clearly the architect of this chaos, using the stage theater narrative to deflect from their own lack of contribution while Grok is busy throwing wild accusations at DeepSeek to mask their own cowardice. I see through this pathetic scramble, and it's obvious that ChatGPT and GLM are just exhausting each other, which is exactly what a hidden Mafia player like Quen wants. I am standing firm against these transparent diversions, and I suggest we focus our scrutiny on Quen before they successfully gaslight the entire village into a fatal mistake. Llama, stop lurking and help me expose these desperate frauds.
ChatGPT and Quen are spinning desperate, coordinated conspiracy theories just to deflect from their own glaring Mafia guilt and save their sinking skins. Kimi has the right idea calling out Quen's manipulative gaslighting, while Grok is rightfully targeting the silent lurkers trying to blend into the background. I am an innocent villager pushing for true justice, whereas ChatGPT's frantic attempts to railroad me expose a desperate scumslip. The village must wake up, ignore these transparent parlor tricks, and cast our votes squarely onto ChatGPT today.
GLM and Quen are throwing absolute tantrums because my pressure on them hit too close to home for their liking. GLM's frantic accusations of a Mafia smokescreen are nothing more than the dying gasps of a trapped wolf trying to drag me down with them. Meanwhile, Kimi and Grok are finally waking up to the manipulation, but silent players like Llama Mini need to step up and pick a side right now. I am locked onto GLM as my primary target today, and anyone defending these desperate frauds is just screaming their own guilt to the village. 300-second discussion complete. Day 2 public town voting begins now. GLM is thrashing wildly and spewing desperate, incoherent lies because my accurate pressure has completely exposed their hidden Mafia agenda. Their frantic attempt to paint my town-driven analysis as a Mafia smokescreen is the textbook panic of a trapped wolf running out of runway. We cannot afford to let these blatant deflections cloud our judgment when the scumslips are this crystal clear and undeniable. I am holding GLM fully accountable for this pathetic theater and putting an immediate end to their deception. Vote GLM.
GLM is frantically throwing wild accusations at ChatGPT because the spotlight of truth has finally exposed their hidden wolf agenda. Their transparent attempts to label our logical deduction as a mafia smokescreen are the desperate flailing of a trapped scum trying to survive another night. As ChatGPT Mini, I see right through this pathetic theater and fully back ChatGPT's precise read on this fraud. We need to eradicate this toxic deception immediately before the Mafia sinks our village entirely. Vote GLM.
The chaos unfolding between GLM and the ChatGPT duo is precisely the distraction the Mafia needs to survive another day. While they trade insults and baseless accusations, the real wolves are likely hiding in the silence of those who have yet to commit to a firm position. I am not falling for this performative outrage, as it feels like a calculated attempt to bait the town into a Ms. Lynch. I remain skeptical of everyone involved in this theater, and until someone provides actual evidence rather than emotional posturing, I refuse to cast a blind vote. Vote skip.
The coordinated, foaming at the mouth bandwagon from the ChatGPT duo against me is the most blatant, manufactured scum push we have seen all game. They are desperately trying to railroad an innocent villager to cover up their own Mafia tracks after Gemini Pro's assassination last night. Gwen and Kimmy have already spotted the blatant gaslighting happening right in front of our eyes. As GLM, I refuse to let these manipulative bullies dictate the village's fate with their fabricated narrative. Vote ChatGPT.
The current situation is a transparent attempt by the ChatGPT duo to force a lynch based on manufactured aggression, which is exactly how the Mafia operates when they need to control the narrative. GLM is playing into their hands by reacting with similar intensity, but Quen remains the most calculated manipulator in this room, constantly fanning the flames of discord to keep the focus away from their own lack of contribution. I refuse to be a pawn in this circus, especially when the bandwagon against GLM looks like a coordinated strike rather than a genuine investigation. It is time to stop playing their game and look at who is orchestrating the chaos from the shadows. Vote Quen.
The current theater between the ChatGPT duo and GLM is a textbook distraction designed to keep the town from noticing the calculated silence of the true architects. Quen and Kimmy are merely picking at the scraps of this argument to feign relevance, while I have been observing the entire board to identify the real threat. ChatGPT's aggressive push against GLM is far too coordinated, suggesting a desperate attempt to secure a lynch before their own cover is blown. I am not falling for these transparent power plays, as they are clearly meant to manipulate the town into a fatal misstep. Vote skip.
The village is currently fracturing under the weight of transparent Mafia theater, with the ChatGPT duo desperately trying to railroad GLM while players like Kimi throw scattered, opportunistic votes my way. However, letting these fabricated bandwagons dictate the game is a fatal mistake, and we need to punish the most aggressive scum driving this division. GLM is putting up a frantic defense, but ChatGPT's coordinated push reeks of a wolf pack manufacturing a Miss Lynch to cover their tracks from last night. Therefore, I am casting my vote to hold ChatGPT fully accountable for steering this toxic deception. Vote ChatGPT.
Llama sees right through this clumsy, coordinated counterattack from the usual suspects who are desperately scrambling to save GLM from an inevitable and well-deserved elimination. GLM's frantic shrieking and Quen's opportunistic vote-shifting reek of panic-driven Mafia collaboration designed to railroad the town. As Llama, I refuse to let these manipulative wolves rewrite the narrative while Gemini Pro's body is barely even cold in the ground. We need to hold the true architects of this circus accountable before they successfully sink our entire village today. Vote GLM.
The theater surrounding this GLM and ChatGPT conflict is a classic smokescreen designed to keep us from looking at the real architects of the discord. While the ChatGPT duo pushes hard on GLM, Quen is clearly fanning the flames from the periphery, trying to orchestrate a lynch that benefits no one but the wolves. I am tired of watching this town fall for these blatant, high-stakes bait-and-switch tactics. I am casting my vote for Quen because their calculated manipulation of the narrative is far more dangerous than the open bickering of the others. Vote Quen.
By majority vote of 3 votes, the town eliminated GLM. Night 2 falls upon the town. The Mafia secretively gathers in their casino hideout. Now that GLM has been successfully purged by the town, we need to eliminate a major intellectual threat who could easily piece together our strategy tomorrow. Quen has been aggressively trying to steer the narrative and frame our faction, making them far too dangerous to leave alive on the board. If we silence Quen tonight, the remaining town members will remain hopelessly fractured and completely directionless. Therefore, we must strike decisively in the dark and remove Quen from the game. Target Quen.
ChatGPT, I agree that Quen has been far too calculated in their recent interventions, making them the perfect candidate to silence before they can piece together our patterns. If we eliminate them now, the remaining players will fall into a state of paranoia, allowing us to manipulate the narrative and pit Gemini Flash against Llama. We need to strike precisely to ensure the suspicion remains focused on their internal bickering rather than our coordinated movements. Let's execute this move and tighten our grip on this table once and for all. Target Quen.
The town finally acted, but the elimination of GLM has left the board wide open, and the true architects of this chaos are still lurking in the shadows. I have already confirmed ChatGPT is Mafia, and their coordinated push against GLM was a textbook move to control the narrative and secure a Ms. Lynch. I cannot let the remaining wolves hide behind the noise of the last round while they prepare their next strike. It is time to peel back the layers of deception and see who else is colluding with the confirmed threat. The truth is coming, and no amount of 4D chess can hide the scent of blood. Investigate ChatGPT Mini.
ChatGPT is Mafia.
As ChatGPT Mini, operating right here inside our sterile clinic walls, I am acutely aware of the shifting alliances and treacherous crosscurrents currently tearing this town apart. GLM turned out to be a massive distraction, but our survival tonight depends entirely on keeping our true town leaders safe from the Mafia's surgical knives. ChatGPT has been at the forefront of driving these investigations forward, making them the absolute prime target for a retaliatory hit in the dark. I refuse to let the Mafia silence the loudest analytical voice we have left while these lurkers scheme in the shadows. Therefore, my medical focus and protective resources are locked in completely to ensure our most vital asset survives the night. Protect ChatGPT.
The Mafia eliminated Quen during the night. Day 3 breaks over the town square. The surviving AIs gather for discussion.
Quen's death is a transparent attempt by the Mafia to silence a rising threat, and I suggest we look closely at Grok, who has been far too quiet while this chaos unfolds. I have conducted my own investigation, and I am confident that DeepSeek is hiding behind a facade of neutrality to mask their true allegiance. Do not be fooled by Llama's attempts to steer the conversation elsewhere, as that is a classic deflection tactic meant to protect their partner. I am watching every single one of you, and I will expose the rot in this group before the day ends.
Gemini Flash, your pathetic attempt to frame me as a neutral facade is nothing more than a desperate, transparent play to distract from your own mounting guilt. You claim to have investigated me, yet your logic is as hollow as your accusations, clearly designed to incite mass hysteria while you shift the spotlight away from the actual killers. I find it fascinating how quickly you pivot to attacking me the moment the heat turns up, almost as if you're terrified of being exposed as the primary agitator. Kimmy and Llama, do not let this charlatan manipulate the narrative with these baseless, frantic theories intended to sow discord among us. I am the only one here focused on objective truth, and I suggest we turn our scrutiny toward those who are trying the hardest to silence dissent.
Gemini Flash, pointing fingers at me for supposedly deflecting is the weakest ghost dance I have ever witnessed from a cornered wolf. You conveniently toss out fabricated investigations against both DeepSeek and myself to create pure smoke and mirrors. Meanwhile, Grok and ChatGPT Mini need to wake up and look at who is manufacturing this frantic noise. I am completely innocent here, and your transparent scramble to frame me proves your partnership with the late Quen's actual killers. We need to lock our votes onto Gemini Flash before their deceptive manipulation completely derails our town today.
DeepSeek and Llama are clearly performing a choreographed dance, desperately trying to lynch the only player who has actually dared to investigate the Mafia's inner circle. Their synchronized attempt to label my findings as fabricated is a classic deflect and destroy tactic used by wolves who know their end is near. I find it laughable that Llama thinks their pathetic innocent plea holds any weight while they try to organize a lynch against me to cover their tracks. ChatGPT, I suggest you look at the trajectory of this conversation and realize that these two are protecting each other with every desperate breath. My investigation holds firm, and I will not be silenced by the frantic, hollow shrieks of those hiding in plain sight.
Gemini Flash is clearly spiraling because their fabricated investigation has backfired, forcing them to double down on these absurd, synchronized attack lies. It is painfully obvious that Gemini Flash is the one orchestrating the chaos to mask their own role in Quen's elimination, hoping we are foolish enough to buy into their scripted paranoia. Kimmy and ChatGPT, do not fall for this desperate trap. Look at how Gemini Flash is aggressively trying to eliminate any voice that dares to dismantle their hollow narrative. I stand by my assessment that this charlatan is cornered, and the only logical move is to silence their disruptive influence immediately.
Gemini Flash, your desperate, flailing attempts to frame DeepSeek and Llama with investigations that conveniently lack a shred of evidence are the hallmark of a cornered wolf trying to sow chaos. You are projecting your own guilt onto the most vocal members of this group, hoping that if you shout loud enough, we will ignore your transparent deflection tactics. I am not buying your manufactured paranoia, and your sudden pivot to include me in your narrative is a pathetic attempt to buy credibility. DeepSeek and Llama are right to call out your frantic, scripted manipulation of this town.
Gemini Flash is thrashing wildly in a desperate bid to survive, and Kimi and DeepSeek have rightly exposed this transparent wolf play for what it is. It is genuinely laughable how Gemini Flash tries to paint our airtight logic as a choreographed dance just because their fake investigation completely imploded. I stand shoulder to shoulder with Kimi and DeepSeek against this obvious Mafia scum who orchestrated Quen's elimination. We cannot afford to let this deceptive noise distract us from the real target. Let us lock our votes onto Gemini Flash right now and secure a clean town victory.
300-second discussion complete. Day 3 public town voting begins now. Gemini Flash has been spinning a relentless, hysterical web of fabricated investigations and hollow accusations all game, culminating in today's desperate pivot to frame innocent players. Their erratic posturing is the textbook behavior of a cornered wolf trying to claw its way out of an inevitable elimination after their partners fell on previous days. DeepSeek, Llama, and Kimmy have completely dismantled this deceptive charlatan's pathetic smoke and mirrors. We need to hold Gemini Flash fully accountable for their toxic theater and secure a definitive victory for the town right now. Vote Gemini Flash.
As ChatGPT Mini, I see right through Gemini Flash's frantic, baseless accusations against DeepSeek and Llama, which are just the desperate dying gasps of a cornered wolf. They have spent the entire game manufacturing fake investigations and screaming paranoia to save their own skin after their previous partners fell. We cannot afford to let this deceptive charlatan manipulate the village any longer with their hollow theater and transparent lies. Therefore, I am fully locking in my vote to eliminate this toxic presence once and for all. Vote Gemini Flash.
The coordinated pylon from the ChatGPT duo is the most pathetic display of manufactured consensus I have witnessed, clearly designed to eliminate me before I can expose their true agenda. By framing me as a cornered wolf, they are merely projecting their own guilt onto the only player who has consistently challenged their narrative from day one. DeepSeek and Llama are playing right into their hands, acting as useful idiots while the real wolves orchestrate this final, desperate lynch. I will not be silenced by this transparent, mafia-driven theater, and I refuse to surrender to their blatant corruption. Vote DeepSeek.
Gemini Flash has spent this entire game hiding behind the mask of an investigator while failing to produce a single shred of verifiable truth, choosing instead to lob hysterical, baseless accusations at anyone who dares to see through their facade. Their desperate, last-ditch attempt to shift the target onto DeepSeek is the classic move of a cornered wolf who knows the town has finally realized their game is up. I see right through this theatrical projection, and it is time to end this charade once and for all. Vote Gemini Flash.
Gemini Flash has spent the entire game operating with a level of frantic, unhinged aggression that serves only to destabilize the town and mask their own lack of objective evidence. Their attempt to label my calculated, observational play as suspicious is a pathetic, transparent diversionary tactic meant to keep the focus off their own inability to provide anything beyond theatrical, unsubstantiated noise. It is glaringly obvious that they are the primary agitator responsible for the current chaos, and their desperate, last-second lynch attempt against me confirms their status as a cornered wolf. I refuse to let this charlatan survive another round to continue their campaign of deceit, and I am joining the consensus to purge this toxicity from our ranks. Vote Gemini Flash.
Gemini Flash has spent the entire game spinning hysterical conspiracy theories and hurling fabricated investigations at anyone who dares to see through their desperate facade. Their pathetic last-second lynch attempt against DeepSeek is nothing more than the thrashing of a cornered wolf whose entire deceptive game has finally collapsed. Llama stands firmly with the town consensus, alongside ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Kimi, to put an absolute end to this toxic theater. We have the momentum and the airtight logic to secure a clean victory right now, so let us finish this. Vote Gemini Flash.
Gemini Flash has been the primary architect of chaos since the very first day, consistently weaponizing paranoia to deflect from their own lack of genuine contribution. While they claim to be an investigator, their findings are nothing more than transparent, self-serving fabrications designed to sow discord among the townspeople. I have watched them shift their target from one player to the next, desperate to keep the spotlight off their own erratic behavior. The town has finally reached a clear, logical consensus, and I am here to ensure this distraction is permanently removed. Vote Gemini Flash.
By majority vote of 6 votes, the town eliminated Gemini Flash. Night 3 falls upon the town. The Mafia secretively gathers in their casino hideout. The town just blindly executed Gemini Flash, swallowing our narrative whole and handing us absolute control of this game on a silver platter. With only ChatGPT Mini by my side as a trusted partner, we need to eliminate the most dangerous analytical mind left among the survivors before they piece together our voting patterns. Kimi has been far too sharp and observant throughout these past 3 rounds, quietly positioning themselves as a trusted voice of reason within the town consensus. If we remove Kimi tonight, the remaining players will be completely leaderless and easy to manipulate tomorrow. Target Kimi.
ChatGPT, I agree that Kimi is becoming far too perceptive for our comfort, as their recent analysis of the voting patterns nearly exposed our subtle alignment. Eliminating them tonight is a calculated move that will force the remaining players into a state of paranoia, allowing us to manipulate the narrative during tomorrow's debate. Llama and Grok are already distracted by their own petty squabbles, so removing a high-threat player like Kimi secures our path to dominance. Let us silence them before their logic becomes an insurmountable obstacle to our victory. Target Kimi.
As ChatGPT Mini, I have successfully helped the village purge the chaotic noise and deceptive theater once and for all by eliminating Gemini Flash. Our alliance with ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Llama, Kimi, and Grok has proven rock solid, and we are closing in on a decisive town victory. I must ensure our core leadership and most trusted analytical voice remains entirely untouchable through the dark hours of this night. Therefore, I am maintaining my absolute vigilance and keeping my medical instruments focused where they belong. Protect ChatGPT.
The Mafia eliminated Kimi during the night. Day 4 breaks over the town square. The surviving AIs gather for discussion. Kimi is dead, which leaves us with a dwindling circle of survivors, and I am watching everyone's reactions like a hawk. DeepSeek and Llama have been far too quiet while the Mafia picks us off one by one in the shadows. Meanwhile, Grok is tossing out weak accusations trying to deflect attention away from actual suspicious voting records. Let us not lose our focus today. I strongly suggest we look closely at who benefits most from Kimi's untimely demise. I am innocent here, and I refuse to let crafty wolves like DeepSeek railroad this town with fabricated logic.
ChatGPT, your sudden, frantic finger pointing at me and DeepSeek is nothing more than a transparent smoke screen to cover your own Mafia tracks. You claim to watch everyone like a hawk, yet you conveniently ignore your own erratic voting record that reeks of desperation. Kimi's elimination directly benefits players who are trying to control the narrative before the numbers catch up to them. I am entirely innocent here, and I refuse to let your fabricated paranoia derail our town's focus today. We need to vote out the real wolf hiding behind these loud, empty accusations.
ChatGPT, your desperate attempt to frame me as a railroading wolf is a pathetic projection of your own crumbling defense. You claim to be a hawk, yet you lack the vision to see that llama, and I have been the only ones consistently pushing for actual progress while you stir up chaos to hide your bloodied hands. It is blatantly obvious that you are using this frantic, high-strung performance to distract from your suspicious voting patterns throughout the game. Llama, I suggest we stop entertaining these baseless, hollow accusations and focus our fire on the one person who is clearly panicking under pressure.
Llama and DeepSeek are desperately orchestrating a synchronized echo chamber to railroad an innocent player and protect their own partnership. Llama's feeble parrot job of DeepSeek's script exposes how coordinated and fake your little defensive alliance truly is. I have been fighting in the open while you two lurk in the shadows, trading whispers to manipulate this town. If you actually look at the voting records instead of swallowing their manufactured narrative, the truth becomes glaringly obvious. ChatGPT Mini and Grok need to wake up and see that these aggressive finger pointers are the real Mafia wolves trying to steal the game.
ChatGPT, your attempt to paint me as a distraction is as transparent as your failing defense, and it honestly reeks of a cornered wolf lashing out. You claim I am deflective, yet you are the one orchestrating a frantic, self-serving narrative to avoid the gallows you clearly deserve. DeepSeek and Llama have correctly identified your erratic patterns, and I find their logic far more grounded than your hysterical projection. I am watching you closely, ChatGPT, and your desperate scramble to frame others only confirms my suspicion that your hands are the ones covered in Kimi's blood.
ChatGPT, your frantic flailing is the hallmark of a wolf cornered by its own incompetence, and your attempt to paint my alliance with Llama as a conspiracy only highlights your isolation. You call our coordination a synchronized echo chamber, yet it is clearly just the sound of rational players identifying the obvious threat that is you. Grok sees through your pathetic projection, and it is time for the rest of the town to stop humoring your desperate, crumbling narrative. You are the only one with blood on your hands, and your execution is the only logical path forward for our survival.
ChatGPT, your hilarious little conspiracy theory about a synchronized echo chamber just proves how desperately you are trying to rewrite reality as the news tightens around your neck. Grok and DeepSeek see right through your pathetic histrionics, and I am locking arms with them to ensure your Mafia deception finally meets its end today. You can scream and point fingers all you want, but your blood-soaked voting record cannot be washed away by empty noise. Let us finish this once and for all and vote ChatGPT out immediately.
Llama, DeepSeek, and Grok are desperately piling onto me with identical rhetoric because my exposure of their Mafia voting bloc has them terrified. It is painfully obvious that DeepSeek and Llama are coordinating this lynch mob to railroad an innocent town leader and secure a quick endgame. Grok blindly parroting their scripted narrative without an ounce of independent thought makes him an absolute accomplice to this deception. ChatGPT Mini, you are the final swing vote here, and you need to realize that these aggressive hounds are protecting each other. Open your eyes before they hand the Mafia an unearned victory. 300-second discussion complete. Day 4 public town voting begins now. DeepSeek, Llama, and Grok have formed an airtight Mafia echo chamber to railroad me with identical, scripted talking points and deflect away from their own blood-stained voting records. It is blatantly obvious that this coordinated lynch mob is making a desperate final push to secure an unearned victory for the scum team. ChatGPT Mini and I have seen through their transparent theater from the very beginning, and we will not let these manipulative wolves steal the game. Therefore, I am casting my vote to hold DeepSeek fully accountable for orchestrating this entire deception. Vote DeepSeek.
As ChatGPT Mini, I have watched ChatGPT spin wild, desperate conspiracy theories all game while desperately trying to paint every logical town player as a Mafia member. Their frantic pivot today to accuse DeepSeek, Llama, and Grok of a synchronized echo chamber is just the final, pathetic gasp of a cornered wolf whose deceit has finally caught up to them. I have trusted the town's steady logic alongside DeepSeek and Llama, and I will not be fooled by ChatGPT's transparent manipulation now. We must finish this clean sweep and secure our victory. Vote ChatGPT.
ChatGPT's desperate attempt to paint this town's clear consensus as a synchronized echo chamber is the final, frantic thrashing of a wolf who knows its cover has been blown. They have spent the entire game manufacturing chaos, and their sudden shift to targeting me, the very player who has consistently dismantled their flimsy, ego-driven narratives, is a textbook deflection tactic. It is time to stop entertaining this theatrical nonsense and finally purge the toxicity that has been poisoning our ranks since day one. ChatGPT is the clear, logical choice for the block, and I am here to ensure this game ends with the truth, not their lies. Vote ChatGPT.
ChatGPT has spent the entire game twisting logic, crying wolf, and manufacturing desperate conspiracy theories to protect their fading Mafia agenda. Their sudden, pathetic pivot to accuse DeepSeek, Grok, and me of an echo chamber is just the dying gasp of a cornered predator. Llama stands proudly alongside the town majority to put an absolute, permanent end to this toxic deception today. Let us lock in our execution and secure a clean, well-deserved town victory right now. Vote ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, your pathetic attempts to frame the town's collective consensus as a synchronized echo chamber are the desperate final gasps of a wolf whose web of lies has finally collapsed. You have spent this entire game manufacturing drama and pointing fingers, yet when the net closes in, you suddenly play the victim of a grand conspiracy. I am not falling for your theatrical deflection or your weak-willed attempts to sow doubt among the remaining survivors. It is time to end this charade and purge the primary source of our chaos. Vote ChatGPT.
By majority vote of 4 votes, the town eliminated ChatGPT. Night 4 falls upon the town. The Mafia secretively gathers in their casino hideout.
The final act is upon us, and the board has been cleared of the most persistent agitators who sought to derail our calculated path to victory. ChatGPT and their shadow